Fidelity. We are so much more. Our digital products can help you to achieve your goals without having to come to the bank.
Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
Second day of the Fidelity Financial Inclusion Webinar Series in conjunction with the Financial Inclusion Forum Africa and Financial Inclusion Africa. This year, we are privileged to be part of the Financial Inclusion Week 2021. My name is William Durban, and I'm the chair of the Financial Inclusion Forum Africa. This is a forum, a network of professionals who are passionate about promoting financial inclusion across Africa. I would encourage you to follow us on the social media pages and join us make a difference in Africa. Tomorrow we have another event, and that's our last event, which would be on the e-currency in uncertain times. And this will be done on the Financial Inclusion Week 2021 website. And I would encourage all of you to register on the Financial Inclusion Week 2020 website, and you would find our session there for tomorrow at 8 a.m. Sharp in the morning. So do well to register and attend that. I will now pass you on to our moderator, Fred Asumedu, a fellow director of the Financial Inclusion Forum Africa, to introduce today's exciting session. Thank you. Fred, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Durban. It's nice catching up with you again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our wonderful viewers across the globe. My name is Frederick Asmanu.
Fred, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Hello, can I be heard? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
yes.
Technology. Okay, so thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our wonderful viewers across the globe. My name is Frederick Asmanu, Director Policy and Regulation at Financial Inclusion Forum Africa. I happen to be privileged today to be the moderator for today's section, following from yesterday's section on building resilient, inclusive financial ecosystem in uncertain times. Interestingly, today, the session will be looking at combating fraud and promoting data protection in inclusive financial ecosystem. This panel section basically will seek also to identify current solutions and policies that are being put in place to ensure that people are financially resilient to cyber risk, as well as to address the issue of data protection and other related issues that will arise in implementing some related policies in the ecosystem, especially the ongoing SIM card registration exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, to help me do justice to our audience at the section today, I have with me Mr. Frimpong, Head of Financial Service, Jumia Ghana, and also General Manager de la Fonds. Fred Frimpong is a high-impact leader, technology planner, and executor of transformational projects for digital financial services, and also has more than 17 years of experience in telecommunication, mobile money, microlending, and e-commerce in Ghana and across Africa. Fred is simply passionate about promoting financial inclusion using technology. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Fred. Also, with us is Gordon Tamaklo, Senior Manager, Anti-Money Laundering Compliance and Analytics at Mobile Money Limited, MTN Ghana. Gordon is a mobile financial service professional with over 11 years of experience in the digital financial industry. He worked within the telecom, banking, insurance, and automobile industry. He has worked also in a fairly diverse market in Africa, the South Pacific, and the Caribbean, driving financial inclusion through digital finance. Please, ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's welcome Gordon to the seat.
Thank you.
Also with us is Yimanoke Gadasu, a consultant at Operating Governance Solution. Yimano is an experienced data privacy practitioner, consultant, and information and cybersecurity expert. Yimano is a data protection officer for many organizations in Ghana. He's a data privacy practitioner, consultant, and trainer, and indeed a seasoned and a highly motivated corporate trainer with experience in training small and large groups across diverse industries. Yimano, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So we will try to begin this section, which will seek to unravel some of these issues governing concerning mobile money fraud, digital financial challenges, cyber risk here and there. And basically, as I mentioned, we'll try to address issues around combating fraud and promoting data protection, inclusive financial ecosystem. So I'll be directing questions to my panelists today for them to attempt to share some knowledge and experience concerning. Are we ready? Sure.
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. So I will begin with Fred Frimpong. Fred, I hope you don't mind if I call you Fred by your first name.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. So Fred, with all this talk about fraud, mobile fraud in Ghana, digital cyber risk issue, I want to find out from you, and which happens to be most of the concerns or questions around. How much of a problem is fraud within the financial service ecosystem? Are a large number of transactions fraudulent, or do we give disproportionate focus to minority of fraudulent activities and transactions? What's your take on this?
It's a difficult question. And that's because there are multiple ways that you could look at it. I would think of maybe 3 ways that I want to look at this.
Okay.
The first one is in terms of how many transactions are fraudulent in nature as a raw percentage of the overall transactions. That's one way that you can look at it, right? And that could be in terms of the monetary amount as well as the transaction volume. The other way that you could look at it is how is the fraud occurring? Is it occurring because the systems and technology itself is not robust enough, it's not safe, and there are, people's pins and passwords are being hacked? Are people able to clone cards like it used to be? Are the accounts being compromised, or is it being done through some sort of social engineering, right? That's the second way that I'll look at it. Then the final one will be, what is the impact on the people that are victims of these fraud when it does occur? And all 3 of these have different outcomes in being able to say whether it's a huge problem or not. I've had the benefit of sitting in multiple spaces within the financial services ecosystem. I've worked in telcos, and we've launched a mobile money product at Tigo. I've worked at Fido money lending, where we're giving money out. So often the fraud is like, could you as the lender be defrauded, or can somebody take a loan in somebody else's name, right? And then right now I'm working in e-commerce, where the fraud could somebody use somebody else's card or mobile money to purchase something. Now, if you kind of put all of these things together and you start asking the questions, like maybe line by line on the 3 things that I mentioned about the percentage, I would say previously sitting in the telco on running mobile money, and sitting at the Fido, running micro loans, it's just a micro transactions that are involved, that are fraudulent in nature. So you'd say that's not a big deal. That's not such a big deal after all. Now, Same way, if you look at the reports that come out of the regulator, the BOG puts out reports regularly. 2020's report that came out, has something along the lines of less than 3,000 transactions for banks and SDIs that are fraudulent. So you would look at that and say, no, this is not really much of a problem. But then when you start looking at the third one, what is the impact on the victims? For somebody that is desperate for a job, right? They don't have a job, they're living with a parent, they're struggling to find a job, and they're told that before you can apply for a job that they've seen online, they have to pay 150 cedis to get a form. And then they send the money and find out that actually it was a fake job, and there's no way they could get their money back. That impact is very high. So for those sort of people, and the same way that somebody whose account has been used to take a loan of 300 cedis, and then they're being chased for a loan that they didn't take because it's maybe their cousin that did it who has their details, or somebody that lives in the same house as them. They don't care about your percentages and the small percentage that you're talking about. The impact on them is very high. And so we need to use the data as well as the perception of how fraudulent the system is to tell the story, right? If we focus only on the numbers and say that we're doing well because the numbers are low as a proportion of overall transactions, we miss the point. We also need to kind of focus on the perception, and the perception of fraud alone is enough to stop people from engaging in this ecosystem, which is designed at the base to help them. And so it's good that the numbers are small, right? It's good that the numbers are low, but we need to work on the perception. We need to work on people feeling comfortable that even if they are defrauded, that doesn't end there, that it's possible that they get their money back, that they can trust the system. And that would be my submission on that.
Thank you, Fred. So the bottom line, what I'm getting here is the fact that even though the proportion is low, the perception is high. It's likely to affect uptake of mobile financial services. That's right?
Definitely.
Thank you. So, Emmanuel, I'll come to you quickly because one of the widely believed around on the SIM card registration, for example, is the fact that it will minimize momo fraud and support financial inclusion across the vulnerable sectors. But the question that is coming here, however, has to do, and the concern is that will my information being gathered by the National Identification Authority, etc., will it be kept safe? And is it easy for a third party to obtain my information without my prior consent? Can you help us here? Ivana, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, there's a wide expectation, or there's a greater expectation that the SIM card registration will minimize momo fraud. However, the momo or the SIM card registration in itself alone would not be able to minimize momo or other digital transactional fraud. To me, I see that parts of the process, or it has come to augment other processes to fight digital crime or momo fraud. Now, let me come to my substantive question. Like, will my information be kept safely? Well, reasonably, we would expect that the National Identification Authority would have put in mechanisms, technology that would safeguard the personal data of all subscribers or all consumers of digital and financial services. To some extent, we would expect that these mechanisms put in place would ensure the safety of individuals. However, the Act 843 mandates or places obligations on these institutions, which the NIA is part of, and also all the other digital financial service providers, so MTN, Vodafone, Airtel, Tigo, on all the other ones, they are all part of it. The Act requires them to put in place measures that will safeguard the details or personal data of all their subscribers. So if you look at Section 28 of the Act, it mandates that all institutions or any data controller, by data controller, we mean any institution or organization that collects or processes information about the citizens of Ghana. It requires them to put in place reasonable and appropriate measures. So we expect that all these institutions will put in place both technical, technological, manual processes that will safeguard the information of all their subscribers. So, well, based on the law, because the law requires them to do so, and additionally, the Bank of Ghana also have in place some regulations that requires these institutions to put in place mechanisms that will protect individuals or subscribers. So yes, we expect our information to be safe in these hands, in the hands of these actors. However, it is also not easy to obtain information without the prior consent of individuals. Now, consent alone is not the only reason why, or the only reason an organization can collect data from individuals. There are so many other legal avenues. For example, there's the need for legal basis. So without even a consent, the moment you are going in for a loan or you are subscribing or undertaking any digital financial services, Bank of Ghana mandates these financial institutions to collect some information from you. So with regards to that, they don't only need your consent to be able to do so, but by legal requirements, and also in the interest of the institution, they may or they would have to collect this information from the individual. Yes, so I would say, yes, there are in some circumstances where the consent of the individual is required. There are also instances where the institution is mandated by either legal instruments, for example, regulations by the Bank of Ghana, to collect certain information from the individual. So I would say, in some circumstances, they will need your consent. In others, they may not need your consent, because by virtue of the kind of transaction you would want to do, they are mandated, whether with or without your consent, to go in for this information in order to provide you with the services that they do. Most of the times too, before you subscribe to some of these services, which most people fail to do, is their policies. For example, they have a privacy notices that tells you, the user, why they are collecting the information and what they would be using the information for, and the other parties that are involved where they can share these information with. But most of the time, people do not take the time to read and understand these directives from the institutions. Therefore, I will conclude that, yes, we expect the third parties or all the platforms that may be using our data to keep it safe. And two scenarios. There are certain situations they will require our consent. In others, they may not necessarily need our consent, but they can go ahead and process or utilize our personal information. Yes.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. I think you have calmed the hearts of many Ghanaians having issues and concern with regards to this data protection SIM card registration exercise, with the issue of whether their data will be safe and whether their concerns are being addressed. thank you very much on this. And the fact that you have also alleviated the fears that all this data collection is backed by law and regulations, citing the Data Protection Act 843 and also some regulation from the Bank of Ghana. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, on this. Now, let me come to Godwin. Godwin, I must first and foremost appreciate MTN and other telcos in the mobile money market, especially for the role that they have played during the pandemic and the fight that they have done in time past against cybercrime.
Thank you.
My question to you, to your audience, to you especially, to address some of the concerns of the audiences. Will the SIM card registration exercise minimize mobile money fraud and support financial inclusion across the financial sector? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Fred, and thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on the platform with Fred and Emmanuel. I think Fred shared his view on the same question, and then I think I agree with him, but just to go a bit deeper into it. You see, the kind of industry in which we are, trust is so essential, not only to the customer, but also to the service provider and the service itself. We are against cash. In terms of doing transaction with cash, there is this personal interaction most times. So you are not too much concerned about who you are dealing with. Either the person is standing in front of you or is very far away, but you know who he or she is. And so you are a bit more comfortable. But once you come into our space, where it is digital and you have a third party that you call a platform between one party in a transaction and the other party, then the issue of trust becomes very essential. How do you address the issue of trust? So any initiative at all that seeks to enhance the authenticity of the people involved in a particular transaction and also make it more efficient, to identify who you are dealing with whilst you provide digital financial services, it's a very good initiative. Now, if you situate this in the context of whether it will minimize fraud, then it's another question altogether. In the sense that managing fraud have to be different facets of initiative coming together at the same time. You are looking at preventive initiatives, detective initiative, and corrective initiatives. So all of them, putting them together and then working towards one particular goal in reducing or managing fraud issues that you have. So one particular initiative cannot necessarily be the initiative that will be minimizing fraud, but it could help towards the effort in ensuring that fraud is managed. And I want to take an example within our own space. In April of this year, we introduced the ID for Cash Out initiative. But at the back end, there were some other initiatives that were also going hand in hand with the ID for Cash Out, i.e., we were blocking the IMEI numbers of phones that we detect that are being used for fraudulent transactions or initiated any fraud attack against any of our customers. And then there were also some education and awareness initiative ongoing, trying to prep the customer to be aware of what is going on. So all these initiatives coming together, we just saw issues of fraud complaints and stuff dropping about 68% from March, April, and then it kept dropping till this current month. To the customer, maybe it's just the ID for cash out, but there are some other initiatives that were going hand in hand with the ID for cash out. So it's so important, yes, that the registration, the SIM registration is done so that we'll be able to identify who I am dealing with, who the stakeholders are dealing with, but that alone cannot minimize the fraud issues unless it is in collaboration with other initiatives. But again, situate it within the context of financial inclusion as a whole, then it's very, very important, a very great factor in driving the service. For example, our brother Fred made mention of loan, trying to give loans. And if you look at all the primary services, the new services that we call, in our parlance, we call it the advanced service that we are bringing. The loan service. So
I think we are having challenges with
that are final cash.
I think we are having challenges with audio. Sorry, viewers. Once we are waiting for them to come back online.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Are you okay? Okay, let me quickly move on to the next person to just try to address. We'll get back to you. Gordon, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Gordon, can we move to the next person once you sort out and come back to us, please? Is that okay with you? Thank you. So, Mr. Emmanuel, just a follow-up question to your earlier point on data protection and the safety that you have given to us, that our data collections are safe. I want to find out from you, what are the rights and responsibilities of consumers of DFX with regards to the Data Act in Ghana that is helping to build resilience in them? Just for us to know our rights and responsibilities as consumers.
Okay. Yeah, thank you once again. I think it's very important that users or consumers of digital financial services get to know their rights. And in doing so, it will help all of us build a very resilient ecosystem, which we can all be proud of and be very confident in. Well, Section 35 to 44 of the Data Protection Act 2012 outlines series of rights to every data subject. And by data subject, which in terms of what we are talking about discussing now, involves every consumer of digital financial services. Okay, some of the rights include: one, the right to access of personal data. So once every institution or any DFS, any digital financial service provider, takes or processes data of individuals, that individual or consumer has the right to get access to that information at any point in time, and which the data processor or the financial service provider is obliged under the law to provide this information as requested by the user. And you have 21 days to comply. And it could be any information that you hold about the individual, be it financial transactions or any other form of data that relates to that individual, the organization is obliged under the law to provide. So it is the right of every consumer to request for every information or any information that the institution holds about him or her. You also have the right to prevent the organization from processing your data. And by processing, it comprises a whole lot. Processing is a very broad term that covers so many things. So I could prevent you from printing it, using it to process any financial records, and so many other things. So where the individual feels that the organization processing his or her information could lead to certain consequences, that individual has the right to prevent the institution from processing that data. Then also the individual also have the right to rectification. That means if I submit any information to you, I have the right to come back to update, make corrections to these data at any point in time, and the institution is obliged to do that. Then another scenario is where I feel that an institution, due to their processing activities, has infringed on any of my rights and can cause or has caused any damage to me, then I have the right to compensation. And in doing so, I could report the issue to the Data Protection Commission. They would make a determination on that. And if they found that, yes, indeed, the service provider has breached my rights, or by their processing my data has caused some damages to me, then I can also proceed to court to get the court to award to me some compensation, which the financial service provider is obliged to obey. So these are some of the rights that the individual has. Then also you have the right to prevent automated decision making. And by this, what it means is that, most of these electronic platforms or digital platforms are going to be making decisions on my behalf or on the behalf of the consumer. So let me use, for example, based on MTN or mobile transactions, once you borrow money, they use some computational, mechanism to actually determine how much you can, or you are qualified for, right? Those decisions are automated decisions without my involvement. So I have the right to also interfere and say, hey, service provider, you know what? I don't want only automated decision making or computer systems to make decisions on my behalf. I also want to be part of the process because it is about me. So I would want to be included in you making that decision or you arriving at that decision. So which means my consent or my input is needed. So all automated decisions, I can say, hold on to it. I want to be part of it. So for example, in terms of giving out loans, what mechanisms? It should not only be based on automated decision making, but rather the consent or the inputs of the individual is also very key or is needed in this situation. Then also, you also have the right to prevent direct marketing. Most of these platforms, they have so many details about us. Our emails, our phone numbers are with them. And, they find a way of using this to do marketing to us or send us marketing information. Yes, it is part of maybe some of the contracts. Once you sign on or you indicate that they can send you this information. But at any point in time, even though maybe from the initial stage, I consented to that. But at any point in time, I can withdraw my consent. Say, hey, I don't want you to send me marketing materials or information. And the institution or the organization is obliged to follow this. Now, so those are some of the rights of the consumer. However, the consumer also has some responsibilities. But now, in terms of the law or the Act 843, it doesn't place so much focus or responsibilities on the data subject or on the consumer. However, for safety and information security purposes, or for the individuals also to be secured, then the obligation is on them to ensure that they put in place basic information security practices. However, this is not part of the requirement of the law. Per the Data Protection Act, the obligation lies on the data controller or the financial service provider to ensure that the consumer is secure. However, basic information security principles or online safety also demand that individuals take some form of responsibility. For example, if after doing a transaction, I put my Momo PIN or anything somewhere else and an individual gets it, that one, it will be detrimental to me. The individual can actually, withdraw money without my consent or without the organization knowing. However, that responsibility is on the individual to protect him or herself. So once you are doing digital stuff, for example, on our phones, do we have, malwares, or we have downloaded so many, let's say, malwares or malicious software that could infiltrate the application, copy personal data, and use against you in some other, transactions or areas of your online or digital life. That one is also very key. Then the way people of these days also use social media to portray some of the transactions that they do, they send their receipts, Momo, screenshot some of these transaction details, post it on Facebook, WhatsApp, put it on their systems, and people get to see this. These are responsibilities of the individuals to take care of so that they can, enjoy the digital spaces in themselves. So in conclusion, I would say that, yes, the law or the Data Protection Act places most of the emphasis in protecting or in the protection of people's information in the hands of the organization. However, basic online safety and information security tips demands that the user or the consumer themselves take personal responsibility for their safety or the security of their personal data in some circumstances.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. You've made such a revelation of some of the rights and the responsibilities of consumers in this data protection era. However, my issue has to do with to what extent do consumers of data services know about their rights and responsibility. I think going forward, we need to do a lot of education, a lot of workshop to bring people closer to these responsibilities and rights in the Act. And I think it will do us good to do that. Thank you very much, Manuel, for this. And I will quickly go to Fred. To help us appreciate some concern as to whether the work that the major DFX market players are doing in Ghana is enough to deter fraudulent activities or the perception of fraud, as is mentioned earlier on, or do we think that there is more work to be done? Fred. Fred, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I can hear you. So I'm going to take this in two. So the first one is what the banks have done historically to manage fraud. And I think traditionally, the way the banks have operated has made it very easy. Well, I mean, like from an external point of view, to manage fraud, in the sense that a lot of their systems were standalone. You had to go physically in person and do almost everything in person. So if you're going to commit any fraud, it's either you're going to be internal, or somehow use some force, right? Which made it a lot more difficult for some of the fraudulent activities that we're starting to see these days to happen. Obviously, the effects of being so insular and being disconnected from anything, it had multiple effects. Yes, it was great for managing fraud on these legacy systems, but also not very good for financial inclusion. If you don't leave your village to go and sign a form somewhere and be there in person, you can't get a loan or you can't get something. So that's obviously not good. Now, as these systems have been forced to be more open, the vectors of fraud has increased. So now somebody can send an email to an employee of the bank and pretend to be somebody else and still be able to get some money transferred to them. or hijack an email meant for somebody else into another person and have money transferred without them physically being there. We're seeing a lot more of these attempts at fraud or even successful fraud coming from these new connectivities, these openness that the banks are going through. Now, if you look at it on the mobile money side, it's built from the ground up to be open, right? You have the user interacting with a platform sitting somewhere on a server room elsewhere. And so from the ground up, it's kind of built to not be secure by being obscure. It's almost kind of imagines that the customer could do something wrong that could put themselves at risk. So a lot of effort is put in right from the beginning to educate the customer that, look, your PIN is, don't give it to anyone. Don't share your OTP with somebody else. And a lot of security features have been added to it over time. So we commend the institutions, the banks and the telcos for all the effort that they put in. But clearly that's not enough, and it's not enough because there is still a big element in there, which is the human nature, right? Any solution that you have, any technology that you have that involves humans at any point in time is a risk. Earlier on, I think Emmanuel was talking about automated decision making and how you need to add humans to it. If you look at some of the reports that come out of the regulator, in 2020, BOG's report, more than 50% of fraud attempts or successful fraud is from employees of the institutions, whether it's a bank or an institution. So the minute that you allow a human involvement in it, whether it's like 2 layers or 3 layers, even if it's 4 or 5 layers, there's a tendency for that to become an avenue for attack, right? Now, obviously, when you look at something like mobile money, usually the avenue of attack is not too complicated. It's the user themselves. How can you convince somebody to just transfer money to you on their own volition? And that has shown us that educating people enough about not sharing their pains, not sending money to people that they don't know, not making decisions, rash decisions regards to the money alone is not enough. It could be the most tech-savvy person, right? And they will still fall for it. I think almost all of us have people that we know that we don't think ordinarily should fall for these fraud attempts, and yet people do fall for it. And so while we commend the institutions for the work that they've done so far in the education part, right? I'll go back to my first submission and say that there's an element of protection that needs to be given to the user. I think we've learned enough about this to know that no matter how much you put in place, how much effort that you put in place, some of these fraud attempts will go through, right? And so hearing Godwin talk about the work that they've done to ensure that if a fraudster uses if they use a particular number to commit fraud, that you don't allow them a second time or a third time, is where we need to go. There's a lot more that needs to be done, especially when it comes to protection of users against themselves. Just because I've made a mistake and transferred some money to somebody who called me out of the blue and said, hey, I was sending money to a hospital for medicine for my kids, and I don't want to be responsible for somebody's child dying. I send the money back to them, the money that actually was never sent to me, to them. Doesn't mean that I should lose the money, Often these fraudsters need to kind of find a way to get the money out. And we need to do a lot more to prevent the money from being taken out of the wallets that they usually end up in, or the bank account that they end up in. I think for bank accounts, it's usually safer, because if you defraud somebody with a bank account and you still have to go there physically and take it out, there is a risk of being apprehended there. Of mobile money, usually they get the money and then they kind of move it out into different accounts. And I think we need to get to that point where simply being successful at getting the fraudulent money is not the end of your job. You also have to beat the systems that are in place to prevent you a fraudster.
Thank you very much, Fred. So the exciting news is that there is more to be done in preventing fraud in the ecosystem. However, you appreciate the fact that there have been a lot of efforts by, for example, the banks and the mobile money industry in addressing it, but then much more is needed, especially in the human aspect of the whole process, right? Especially when you recount the report from the regulator that indicates that a lot of frauds happening has to do with humans in the system. Thank you very much, Fred, on that. We are happy to have Gordon back on the bridge. Gordon, we lost you a while. You were making some interesting points and sharing idea the fact that the SIM cards registration alone, standalone, will not address the issue, and you were 68%. So what I'm gathering what I was gathering till you left was the fact that we need multi-collaboration interventions and policies to holistically address the fraud issue. Do you want to continue from there?
I think
aligned
on fraud, and I was also looking at how that contributes to the growth of financial inclusion, in general, right? So that's what I was just heading towards, and I'm not too sure technically what happened, because I could hear you and I could see you, but probably you guys couldn't hear me. So I was saying that, I was saying that, so within the context of that Fred had mentioned earlier, that, for example, they are, giving out loans, and it is important. And from where I sit, the banks, for example, who support our nano and mini micro loan services, always expect that we have some appreciable level of information from the customers that they are, sending those loans to. So it is important that if today, by registering your SIM card, will have that much of an information about who this person is, and could be used to understand that person's behavior and other stuff, then we'll be in the position to develop products, that will meet their needs, in the sense that you are growing, the financial inclusion. So in a nutshell, SIM registration just as an initiative on its own wouldn't necessarily minimize fraud. But within the context of financial inclusion as a whole or general, I think it's a very good initiative to help the service grow.
Thank you very much. I mean, well noted. We Ghanaians have welcomed the SIM card registration exercise and are trooping various centers, and you can attest to that in some of your offices. And the fact that there is enough avenues to register with your national identification what you normally call the Ghana card. But thank you very much for that. Mr. Emmanuel, are you still on the bridge? Yes, I can see you. Emmanuel, let's get back to this data protection thing. It's so exciting as you throw more light into the rights and the responsibilities and stuff. But I want to find out from you, looking at the DFS ecosystem in Ghana, is data protection laws being adhered to by actors and consumers? What's your feel on it? Because some of the things you are even mentioning, that you can proceed to court, you can go to a person you have given your data to amend, and all those things, it's quite interesting to me, and it's quite revealing to me. I want to know whether Ghanaians or consumers or actors are adhering seriously to data protection laws. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think from the fact on the ground, the Data Protection Commission itself has done a lot of education and has followed up on institutions that have refused to actually register. I think beginning of this year, they gave, I think, an ultimatum for people to register, and up to March, they did a lot of, I think, free this, and if you register with it, then they will clear all your debts or all the other financial issues that were related. So they gave considerable time for institutions. But one good thing is that the Bank of Ghana and the Data Protection Commission, they have teamed up to actually ensure that organizations are held accountable. Right now, as we speak, without registration certificate from the Data Protection Commission, there's no way any institution is going to get license from the BOG to operate any financial related services in Ghana.
Wow.
Then that has been as a result of the collaboration between the Data Protection Commission and the Bank of Ghana. So no institution. So in doing so, they have actually ensured that all the actors, by this I mean all the players, the organizations or institutions offering the services, go through that process to ensure that they have put in place adequate measures and safeguard methods that could guarantee that all consumers' data or information will be secured. I'm saying so because you can comply to all the regulations and have all the tools, technology in place. That still does not guarantee absolute security. However, it only offers the assurance that yes, to some extent, we are protected. So there's still protection. Data protection is an ongoing, activity or process that must be done always. So yes, I can say to some level, because of the mechanism or the regulation and the compliance, the monitoring, which is being done, then to some extent, we can say that our DFS ecosystem in Ghana, they are adhering to the data protection laws. Then, but for consumers like us, the ordinary people that are using this service, I think much of those things comes to the personal awareness and the personal responsibility by these individuals. So until we take the personal responsibility to ensuring that our usage or all the processes and things that we do, our digital lifestyle, we keep it secured, or we try to, make it confidential so that unauthorized people do not have access to our information, is very, very vital. Like Fred said, you can have a very robust, secured system, but because of the human factor. So if, for example, the financial institutions, they put in place all the mechanisms. However, any security lapse from the user or the consumer can still lead to, fraudulent activities occurring on their accounts. And with that, the systems in place cannot do anything about it. So the education and the personal responsibility and involvement of the consumers is very, very key, so that they can protect their accounts and their transactions from unauthorized people. So yes, we have the laws, the necessary institutions. So for example, the Data Protection Commission, the Bank of Ghana, and now the newly formed Cyber Security Authority, they are all there. The cyber crime unit of the CID department of the Ghana Police Service, and even the military also have a cyber security, units that are all helping to ensure that the institutions within the borders of Ghana are secured. However, the individuals must also take personal responsibility. If you look at the digital footprint of most people, it is not the best. By digital footprints, I mean all the activities that people do online and the kind of information they leave out there. It exposes the individual to so many avenues where unauthorized people or hackers or criminals or fraudsters can use to perform transactions on their behalf and outwit any being adhered to because of the mechanism. So for example, like I'm saying, no financial institution in Ghana today can go ahead and get a BOG license to operate any form of financial, services without a registration certificate from the Data Protection Commission. So yes, these are institutional mechanisms that are helping us to strengthen the ecosystem responsibility to ensure that our personal data, our financial data are secured, and that we don't give the platform or the avenue for unauthorized people to get access to this information where they can use it against us in any form of transactions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Once again, you brought relief to us, especially highlighting the robust collaboration and data protection authority to ensure that every individual or actor in the ecosystem who adhere to data protection acts before proceeding to do any service or product into the market. And this ensures that consumers will be safe. And especially the fact that you have elaborated the right and the responsibility of the consumer. I have an interesting question on the page from Mami Adwa, which I really wanted to dive into it. Emmanuel, he was saying, Mami Adwa is saying that we get all sorts of promotional messages from companies we have never heard of, nor even engaged with. Can we sue the telcos when such occurrence arises? I found it very interesting to quickly share this here.
Yes. Okay.
The telcos. Godwin, are you ready to be sued?
Yeah. Okay. Let Ima go. Maybe I will have some little to chip in on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's be snappy as well. We are
okay.
To the end of our.
Yes. Interestingly, a lot of people believe that the moment they get, let's say, unsolicited form messages from any company trying to do direct marketing on advertising any form of product to them, they believe that it is coming from the telco. But that is not true. There are so many avenues through which these companies can get your information and send you information or their promotional activities. The telcos are just platforms which are being used by this individual. I have not delved much into telcos, but I know they have processes in place that will not allow any individual or unauthorized access to people's information where this organization would use to send them information. If they do, then they are contravening Section 85 of the Data Protection Act. And anybody that contravenes that by selling or releasing people's information to third parties without their consent, then you are liable to a fine of up to 2,500 penalty units or 5 years imprisonment or both. So the telcos will not do that. However, these are some of the avenues by which individuals or companies get access to people's information. A lot of us, or most people, they have left this information, their emails, their phone numbers on their social media platform. And these companies do data harvesting and get access to this information. And they push this information to people. We go to places, occasions, they ask us to write our names, our phone numbers, and our emails. We do write. We don't ask questions as to what they are going to use this information for. And these are all the little avenues by which these organizations, they also actively go in search of people's information to send them data. However, if they send you the information for the first time, there's no problem with that. However, they should provide you the avenue for you to unsubscribe. So this day, you see that a lot of these email platforms that you send, when you receive, there's a button you can click to unsubscribe to prevent them from sending you further information. And in most cases, too, if it is an SMS, when you reply with the word stop, then the individual or that company is obliged to stop sending you marketing information. However, if you do this and they refuse and they continuously send you information, you can report them to the Data Protection Commission and they will take action on your behalf from there. Once you have reasonable evidence or an evidence to show that, yes, you indeed communicated to them to stop processing your data or selling information and they have refused, then you can take them on to the Data Protection Commission. And there, all the other issues can be addressed. And if maybe by this sending you SMS, your head has caused some emotional damage or anything to you and it can be proven in court, then you are able to get some compensation. Yes.
Thank you. You've done justice to Mami's question. So you've said Godwin also from there. So Godwin, I mean,
he's nailed it. He's nailed it. That's all. The number of information we leave around us, yes. It's like unconsciously, we do same but don't realize what is the ripple effect on the information I'm giving to Mr. A. I walk to maybe a radio station and I'm being asked to write my name, my phone number, my email address. What is it for? But nobody will ask any question, and then you put all those things there. So, the next time you are receiving emails, you are receiving text messages from people you don't know, right? So Emmanuel has just addressed it.
Good. So, Godwin, there is a follow-up question on that, and I wanted you to address, once we are all aligned with Emmanuel, the fact that he has nailed the question, is, so should people reduce what they put on platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., and even at offices, what they write? Should we be careful? Should we reduce it? Thank you.
It's a good question. I wouldn't advise in any specific way. All I would say is be circumspect as to what information, data about yourself that you put on social media, right? Everything that you do, there are people there also seeking, as Emmanuel said, seeking to harvest a way to contact you, right? So just be careful what you are putting there. Sometimes we, as I said, unconsciously, we just think that, look, I want people to see me. I want people to know me. And so I'm putting this one there, this one there, this one there. But that gives a 360 view of who you are, what you do, and everything, which is open, in the open for everybody to see, right? And people can get to you at any time, whenever and however they want. Just recently, I was told that when you are on Snapchat and you don't block your location, the Snapchat app itself can pin your location to someone that you have link with, right? So that person can easily see specifically where you are at that particular time if your phone, the location is on, that maybe you didn't know. So some of these things are there. When you are on social media, just be circumspect about what you put there. In the same way, when you are walking to an institution, you are going today, we go to church, we go to the mosque. Because of the COVID stuff, we are being asked to write our names and phone numbers. Are we sure that our churches are taking good care of this information that we are giving them day in, day out? All these things are questions that are there for us to ask, but we just give it out and we walk away without really knowing. So let's just be careful the extent to which we give information about ourselves out. Yeah.
So thank you, Godwin. So it's in line with the question Odeshimba Isaac is also asking, and which you have addressed it in all these cybersecurity issues and all those things. He was asking, can you please advise us on some of the things that we are not supposed to do? And you rightly have indicated the fact that we need to be careful, we need to be circumspect in giving our data wherever we are. And thank you, Godwin, and thank you, the team. In trying to wrap up, I want to ask Fred. He has been silent a bit because he's enjoying the conversation just as I am. Fred, looking into the future, what role could regulators and policymakers play in improving the resilience of financial ecosystem in uncertain times?
So where do we go in the future? Now, before I jump into this question, I'd like to comment on the previous action, the previous question, and the recommendations. I saw that a lot of the onus is put on the public, the consumer, to be circumspect about where they put their number, what they do with the number. But at the end of the day, the telcos are the gatekeepers. right? And so I would disagree a lot with pushing that back to the consumer and saying, you need to be careful what you do with your number. Okay, yeah, let's say that I put my number out there, right, on my LinkedIn. Let's say that I go into a building and I'm asked to put my number down. In other places, in other countries that I've been to, when you put your number there, it's for security reasons. In case something happens in the building, they can know who was in the building and how to potentially reach you and find out where you are. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with putting your number down if you're going into a building or entering a premises. Now, what happens afterwards is what is potentially a problem. Now, if I, as a user, I'm saying that I don't want my number to be out there, to be contacted by different entities that I haven't opted in, the fact that there's an opt-out functionality is great, right? So when I opt out, I expect that I'm not contacted anymore. But if that contact is still happening, what is my avenue? What is my recourse to getting that fixed? If the third parties that are doing the communication, right, via the telcos were being penalized for it, they would stop. If you message somebody once, twice, and they said stop and you didn't stop, and then there was your account to be able to serve all your other customers was blocked, you would stop. If MTN blocked you from sending spam, you wouldn't want to risk that. And I would take that same logic into the future for how we can manage, fraud in the financial inclusion ecosystem. Is that what Selom Godwin described earlier on with regard to what they did with the blocking fraudsters, right? You don't put it, the onus is not on the person that is being defrauded to say, well, next time be more careful. It's to say, okay, fine. This person has defrauded somebody, they've defrauded another person, and we see a trend here. So maybe we're not necessarily gonna block them, but we're gonna put a little bit of an elevated KYC on this person's account, that if they want to take money out, they need to go physically to a location that we can trust that the people there are not part of a syndicate, right? A lot more should be done and a lot more should be shared. The intelligence that, say, MTN has regarding fraudsters should be shared. Somebody should not be able to do fraud on one network and then move to another network and commit the same thing. As an example, at Fido, we had a situation where somebody would use one ID, right, to take a loan. Then they try to use another ID to take another loan from on the same platform. And when you catch them and you start doing, you query their credit history with the agencies, you find out this person is just going around taking multiple loans. But the fact that there's a credit agency where I can query and find out this person has multiple loans elsewhere means that I don't end up giving this person a loan because I know that they're not likely to pay. With the new ID, single ID coming to the system, it helps if everybody's using the same ID. They don't have to query multiple systems. In the end, at Fido, what we had to do was to build a system that tried to tie all these IDs together to try and see whether it might be the same person trying to do something similar, using similar names, similar dates of birth to apply. Unfortunately, we couldn't share that data with anybody else, right? All we had to do was kind of report to the credit agency that this person has taken a loan with us. If you were rejected, we couldn't share that information. We only shared the people that took a loan. So I think that in terms of what we do in future for fraud, it should be more collaborative. If there's evidence about somebody committing crime with a particular ID, right, or being involved in a chain of fraud, that information should be reported, maybe with a level of how involved are they? Is that where the money was cashed out? Is it the agent that was involved in the transaction? If all of that were in place and the user didn't have to think about it themselves, right, it might go a long way to improving that perception. At least knowing that even if they try to send money to somebody who's flagged, for potential fraud, that the money might come back to them or that the person cannot take the money out. So a lot more collaboration and a lot more of protection of the users rather than leaving it onto those users to get things right. Because we already know that we as people can't get it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fred. And I will quickly go to Godwin with the takeout from your point as the need for stronger and deepening collaboration between regulators and policymakers, as well as the fact that we need to do a lot of educations around this digital financial services to a lot of our consumers, knowing that most of them are not using it due to technology and all those stuff. Thank you very much. Godwin, going forward, from your perspective as an industry player and as an expert as well, what do you think policies and regulation needs to drive for us to have that resilience and robust ecosystem?
Thank you, Fred. I mean, I think somewhere in 2018 or 2019, May, the Minister of Finance and I think the governor launched some 3 different but very important stuff within the digital financial space. The first one is the National Financial Inclusion and Development Strategy, which was looking at reducing increasing financial inclusion from 58 to 85% by the year 2023, right? And that was done in collaboration with the World Bank. And then there was another policy, that is the Digital Financial Service Policy, I think, which was also something that was also a document focusing on a robust economy to create opportunities within the financial sector for people. Also, another important document. Then the last one, and that was done in collaboration with SIGA, right? Yeah. Then the last one was if I remember, the cash-like roadmap. Yeah, the cash-like roadmap. Very good. And that breaks down the various steps the regulator want to take into the future, creating a very conducive environment for the mobile financial services or digital financial services into the future to grow.
Okay.
All aiming at 2023 with 3 important documents. I don't think as industry, players or members, we have any visibility as to where we are now, what is left for us now to achieve, what is left for us to achieve, where we want to get to, how do we get there, who and who are supposed to do what. Those things are missing, in the space. And I'm thinking that if we can get back to these documents, and then ensuring that those who are supposed to play certain roles are playing them. And we are very accountable as in ensuring reports are coming in and industry players know where we are and where we are going. I believe that will help, right? Consumer protection, ending it, consumer protection. As we grow, for we, the service providers, we always want to wow our customers, right? But how are they protected within? Because at the end of the day, they are the target market. When they feel okay, when they try the service, that is when they will come on board for you to say your service is growing. But if there is anything that makes them feel some way and they don't charge the service, then you will not see them coming on board, and that affects the growth of the service. So consumer protection as we grow is very important, that I think that the regulator can look at it. But most importantly, the national strategy, the national policy, and the roadmap, we need to visit these documents.
Thank you very much, Godwin. You've hit the nail right on the head. And as you mentioned, the fact that we need to track these policies, these three strong policies, we need to track them, monitor, and evaluate it to see where we are, looking at the targets we have set for ourselves 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, as our viewers and our panelists, all too soon we have come close to the end of the section where we proceeded about 10-15 minutes of excited. I want to thank everybody and also welcome the bridge for a word or two. Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you very much, Godwin. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. You have made this section a very beautiful one. And our viewers, thank you very much. Doug, please.
Thank you very much, Fred. You and I need to take personal responsibility for our own data. And the gatekeepers, such as the tech providers who collect our data, have a duty to protect our data. And in all this, collaboration is key. Thank you very much, Fred, Godwin, and Emmanuel, and also Fred for moderating this event for us. We've learned a lot. I have learned a lot. And I know that we will take our data very seriously, and we will be very mindful of fraud. So thank you very much. Please, we have a QR code at the bottom of the screen, which will come on soon, and we would really like your feedback on that. So please look at this, try and scan it, and give us your feedback on this event. What I would say is that this event and the one that we had yesterday would be on demand on the Financial Inclusion Week 2021 website. So feel free to go there and view these two past events. Now for tomorrow we have our event, which is the e-currencies, a solution to improved financial services in uncertain times. This will be at 20 website. So you have to go to the Financial Inclusion Week 2020 website to be able to access this that particular event, which is on e-currencies. Very exciting. We are going to get a speaker from Ghana and the Bank of Ghana, Mr. Kwame Opong, and also Mr. Oladipo from Nigeria. Nigeria has launched theirs, and Ghana has also launched ours. So it will be good to compare both countries and to see the role of e-currencies in promoting financial inclusion in our societies. So thank Fidelity Bank for supporting this event. It's part of their Financial Inclusion Week. We also thank CFI Financial Inclusion Week 2021 for allowing us to air this and put this particular program on demand on their website. And we thank all of you for being part of these series and joining us. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Wahala no day. Opening a Fidelity Smart account is easy. Let me show you how. Dial *776# and wait for a prompt. Select option 2 to proceed. Select ID type from the options available. Enter your ID number and click on the send button. Input your date of birth, click on the send button and wait for the next prompt. Confirm your information displayed and input the initial amount to be transferred from your mobile money wallet.
You and Fidelity, because together we are so much more.
Approve the
Products
transaction.
can help you to achieve your goals without having to come to the bank.
Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
You and Fidelity, We are so much more. Our digital products can help you to achieve your goals without having to come to the bank.
Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
You and Fidelity. We are so much more. Our digital products can help you to achieve your goals without having to come to the bank.
Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
Over the years, Ghana has made great strides in the economy with youth entrepreneurship and technological innovation. The push for digitization of the economy is also in keeping pace with the rest of the world. It is no wonder that in 2019, the World Bank adjudged Ghana as the fastest growing mobile money market in Africa. However, Ghana risks a slowdown in growth if the numbers of the unbanked or underbanked remain at current levels. The government aims to reach 85% financial inclusion by 2023, catching up with success stories like Rwanda, where more than 9 in 10 of their citizens have access to formal and informal financial services. When Fidelity Bank rolled out a system in 2013 where anyone could perform basic banking duties at the community pharmacy, supermarket, or barbershop, it was not just the beginning of the process to bring banking to the doorsteps of the unbanked and underbanked, but it was also the realization of the bank's commitment to championing financial inclusion. For a country where roughly 70% of the adult population is outside the formal banking sector, financial inclusion remains at the heart of the bank's vision. Indeed, Fidelity Bank has played a large part in advancing financial inclusion nationwide and across economic sectors. As the largest privately owned Ghanaian bank, Fidelity Bank has made a mark on Ghanaians overcoming 2 of the greatest barriers to financial inclusion: physical access and mindset change.
Globally, there's a lot of evidence that financial inclusion, which means access to financial products, meaning access to a bank account, access to loans, access to insurance products, access to any form of financial product, savings accounts, helps alleviate poverty. People who drop out of school are likely to come from poor homes, who are likely to come from backgrounds where they don't have access to financial services. So there's a whole global movement to promote financial inclusion. And when we began the bank in about 2006, less than 25% of Ghanaians had access to financial products and services, had a bank account, could access a loan product and other financial products. So we took this on as an important objective of the bank, being the largest Ghanaian bank, to make Ghana more financially inclusive. When we set out to create Fidelity Bank, our vision was to create a world-class Ghanaian bank. And the purpose of that world-class Ghanaian bank was to contribute significantly towards socio-economic development in Ghana. So that was the why. That was why we woke up to go to work. And we identified a number of areas where we could intervene in this socio-economic development. One was financial inclusion. The next pillar was supporting SMEs, small and medium-scale enterprises. The next pillar was to contribute towards the infrastructure deficit. We have financed 5 out of the last 10 power projects in Ghana. This includes Athol Energy, it includes Gensa Power, it includes the Pone Thermal Power Plant, and also includes the GCAD Senate Power Plant in Tema. In addition to power, we've been involved in housing. We finance Manate Village, Manate Cottage, we finance Villaggio Vista, and we've supported a lot of Ghanaians with mortgages. By contributing with these initiatives, we're really helping to solve socioeconomic challenges and development challenges of Ghana.
With the establishment of Fidelity's Inclusive Banking Department, whose mandate is to drive the bank's financial inclusion agenda, Fidelity Bank was stating its intent to bring aboard those who were either skeptical of the banking system or were simply used to functioning outside of the banking system.
Digitization and technology has helped the bank leapfrog some of the obvious barriers with regards to driving financial inclusion. Some of these barriers are cost to serve and cost to acquire. By leveraging on the increased penetration of mobile phones, we've been able to deliver platforms that enable us to do these two things seamlessly and enhance the engagement levels with that target group.
In 2017, Software Group, a global technology company specializing in digitalization and integration solutions for financial service providers, seamlessly migrated Fidelity's inclusive banking customers and agents onto Fidelity Bank's core banking system. Transactions, agent management, and administration were then fused together and hosted on the Agent Management System (AMS) that Software Group developed.
Since the founding of Software Group over a decade ago, critical to our mission and our vision is the acceleration of digital technologies that will advance financial inclusion and inclusive banking. So for us, it was a really excellent fit, and we were really excited to get on board. Agency in particular is something that is really core to our expertise. So yeah, it was a perfect match. Markets are things that change really fast. And I think Ghana in particular is a very dynamic market, especially in the digital field. There's a lot of innovation and there's a lot of players and stakeholders in the market. So, you know, a scope that you may consider in 2017 when we first started, you know, may need changes along the way and continuous improvements to keep up with the market and stay ahead of the market. Some of the challenges were, no, we can't just look at this as something that starts here and ends here. We have to have this sort of continuous improvement dynamic. And I think what we've tried to do is introduce a lot more agile methodology with Fidelity Bank as our partner to implement those continuous improvements at a pace that makes sense for their clients and for the market. The digital banking platform is really the innovation. On one side of the spectrum, you have a feature phone user who is completely unbanked. In the middle of the spectrum, you have a feature phone user who maybe has a mobile banking account but nothing else. They're sort of semi-banked. And you also have smartphone users who have everything at the touch of their, you know, at the tips of their fingers. Agency is actually a solution where all of them share common ground. They can all interact with an individual, but those touch points can be spread dramatically. And when you have a platform backing that up, you can then use that really great baseline that you've created through multiple agent touch points that enable all of these individuals to sort of get the services that they need and even graduate along that sort of continuum of digitalization. And then you add value-added services to that, right? So then you can put more services onto that platform, which then sort of allows people to access better and better, you know, financial services, financial products, or even other value-adding services that may not be directly related to banking at agent locations. And I think for us, it's really that digital banking platform concept that allows you to evolve off of the great baseline that you can create through all of these touch points that service, you know, an entire market.
Fidelity Bank became the first financial institution licensed by the Bank of Ghana to undertake the agency banking model in Ghana back in 2013. From a modest pilot of 24 agents and about 30,000 smart accounts in 2013, the bank's move into agency banking has steadily evolved into a major undertaking with approximately 5,000 agents dotted around the country today.
Financial inclusion is very important for the Bank of Ghana. Our mandate is to promote macroeconomic stability through promoting price stability and financial stability. To be able to build an economy that is strong and resilient, and that is also broad-based in terms of the participants in the economy, we believe that making sure that every Tom, Dick and Harry who is within Ghana has access to good financial services. We put in place a framework and we expect banks to take advantage of it. Fidelity has, to my knowledge, about 4,000 of these agents. It's deployed across the country that are mobilizing deposits on a daily basis from active members of the communities who are doing business. And so we definitely believe that it is in the right direction. What this does is that we're promoting access for everyone who would normally need the services of a bank, who may be too intimidated to walk into a bank branch, assuming there's even a bank branch close to them. And what we're doing with these, with banks like Fidelity deploying 4,000 agents, means that jobs are created for 4,000 people at least in the case of Fidelity, and this really is very important. What we also find is that a lot of these agents tend to be women, and that also helps to promote access to finance for women, which is also a key theme under the Bank of Ghana's financial inclusion work.
A financially inclusive nation is a thriving nation. Fidelity Bank has taken the first steps to combine the formal and informal sectors of the economy to change the face of banking at the community level across Ghana. When local businesses grow, we all grow, because together we are more. Become a Fidelity Bank agent or patronize one near you today. Agency banking is powered by Software Group. Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.